everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I have a special guest here with me to tell her divorce and remarriage story. Dr. Fanike-Kiara Young is a licensed trauma therapist and a coach. Dr. Young, please tell the listeners who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much for having me, Sade. I am an energy shifter. I help to remove the energy blocks in others financially, spiritually, mentally, physically, energetically. And a lot of times these blocks are rooted in trauma. And so I work with them to kind of shift those energy blocks so that they can become the high performing women that they are desiring to be. It's been fulfilling work. I'm also a speaker, author, and coach. And it's just been great to be able to take some of my own experiences and help others.
That's amazing. So what does it mean to shift energy?
So scientifically proven, it has been shown that when our bodies or when we experience something, that it creates an energy. So anything that you do creates some type of energy. And sometimes these things are not necessarily positive experiences. And so what that does is that can result in energy blocks. And so that means that, you feel stagnant. It means that you feel stuck. You're not able to move forward with executing and getting the results that you're wanting to get. I have women who come to me and say, well, I'm trying and I'm dating and I'm, doing all of these things. And then when we get to the root of it, they may have a history of some type of, trauma from their past. It could be a bad relationship. It could be something that they witnessed in childhood. It could be something that someone told them in childhood about relationships that has created this narrative from them. And so they are then stuck, which is a block. And so my job is to come in and help them to move and shift the energy and get rid of that specific block, which could be mental or physical, or like I said, energetic or even spiritual. And I try to tackle it from all of those angles to make sure that we are healing that specific pain point, from all of the avenues, from all the way around. I try to make sure that we get to it so that we can truly, help them to overcome it.
Yeah. And I actually resonate with that word stuck because I hear that all the time in my practice. Like clients are like, when they come to me, they're like, hey, what result are you trying to create in your life or what's going on in your life? And I often hear that word stuck on my consultation calls. I feel stuck. I feel like I can't do what I want to do. So it seems to me like divorce is one of those situations that happens that creates this situation where women feel stuck. Was that the case for you when you got divorced?
So I would say probably about 7-8 years ago, I met someone, we hit it off. But I would say going in, I knew, that this probably wasn't the best thing for me to do. But, I was in my 30s. I didn't have children. I was like, well, it's about time. And what are you waiting for? And so I kind of, just went ahead and moved forward and moved really fast. And it, like I said, going in, I knew. And so that's another thing I find that a lot of times we know, especially women, like we know, that intuition, that connection that we have, we know like this is probably not the best situation for me. And some of us, settle, which for me, I felt like, of course, afterwards that I had settled, but by choice. I had said, hey, I'm in my 30s. It's about time. Let's just do it. What are you waiting for? And so I didn't necessarily feel stuck after my divorce. I actually felt free. And what I mean by that is I learned a lot about myself. And that was one of the things that I learned. So I came to terms with the fact that I had made this decision that I knew wasn't a good decision for me. But I made that decision. And so after the divorce, I decided that I would never, ever settle again. So it was actually very empowering for me. I didn't really go through a period where I was like, oh my gosh, it's just. Now, what I did feel was I felt shame. And I felt like if I told people that I was getting divorced, that they would judge me. And so I kind of held on to it for a while, and I didn't really share it with anyone. But leaving the actual divorce, I was able to save money. And so I wound up buying a house immediately after. And, it kind of allowed me to really do those pieces. I had just graduated with my doctorate. And so I felt like, as far as achievement wise, I was on cloud nine. But internally, like I said, there was that shame that was there. And I think a lot of us feel that. And that's, I think, sometimes why people choose to not divorce, is because they think about what are people going to say? And are people going to judge them? And, oh my gosh, I made this crazy mistake. And, everyone's going to have something to say. And, so then they just stay in the situation, even though they're unhappy. And so, for me, it was, no, it's time to go.
Yeah, 100%. And there was something that you had said, because I do this with my clients, where when we retrace back to when they made the decision to marry that person that maybe they felt was not the right for them, or some people don't realize at all. And I always want them to go back to sort of like whatever the question was. And you actually said your question was, your brain was telling you, what are you waiting for? And underlying that was, there was something you should have been waiting for that you didn't wait for, right? What do you think that was? If you went back to your young self to say, hey, this is what you need to wait for, what would you tell her?
So I would say to wait, because there's parts of me that were underdeveloped still. And I wasn't in a space to acknowledge those parts of me. And so I would tell my younger self to wait, because you are still learning some lessons that you need to get or learn before you can actually attract the person that you're really supposed to be with. And so that's what I would say. However, again, and I tell people all the time, I'm so grateful for my ex-husband. I'm so grateful for that lesson, because being in that relationship, he had some addiction issues. There was some manipulation. There was issues with his money management. It was nothing about it was ideal to how I wanted my marriage to be. So I modeled my view of marriage after my grandparents. And in my grandparents' household, their money went into the same pot. My grandmother was very traditional. She cooked and she did most of the shopping. My granddad, he worked. She also worked as well, but he was very, provider. And I loved, their whole relationship and what it looked like, and the way that they communicated, and, they ate 3 meals a day together. And, I love that. And that was not how my former marriage was. And so again, I say, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it really allowed me to draw the boundary, and then to become very intentional and protective about who I allowed in my space, who I dated. When I it, it shifted me so much that I would meet someone, and let's say within that first day or 2 days or 3 days, if I saw one red flag, I was like, no. And it's because I became very clear, not about what I wanted or what I needed. I became very clear about what I did not want and what I did not need. And so sometimes when I'm working with my clients, that's what I tell them. Sometimes it's not about knowing what you need or knowing what you want. Sometimes it's just about being clear about what you don't want and what you don't need, and going off of that. And so it was actually one of the best situations for me, because it helped me there. And it also, with me creating those boundaries, allowed me to use that in a space with my family, because I was very, trying to take care of everyone, and just, constantly that therapist, and constantly that provider, and constantly that nurturer. And, I had pretty much depleted myself. I mean, I was getting my doctorate, working a job, I had my private practice, and then I had a contract at a school, and doing all of this while married. And I literally felt depleted, and I was doing it not for me, but I was doing it to make sure that, like I said, I was helping my family. I was, taking care of people, and then catching, the slack at home of coming home and still having to be a therapist. And so it was just it was all draining. And that relationship taught me that I needed to take care of me. And so when I bought my house, right after we got divorced, I bought my house. It's a 3-bedroom house. And I did not set up a guest room. I had my bedroom, I had my office, and I had my workout room. And I was like, I don't care if anyone comes to stay with me because this house is for me. So it helped me to really become selfish, but in I think a very healthy way, and realize that I needed to really take care of myself and respect what I needed and what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like radical self-responsibility in some ways. I mean, I don't know what name you would put on it, but I often tell my clients that like your first responsibility is to take care of you. Like we're almost taught the opposite when we're younger. Like our first responsibility is to take care of others. But really, when you take care of you and you're solid, you're actually doing a whole bunch of people a favor because then they don't have to take care of you. And you don't have to have that resentment of waiting for someone to come take care of you. And then second, when you do radically take care of yourself, you will eventually achieve an abundance. And you can choose to give out of that, but never to the point of depletion, right? The issue of depletion or resentment or burnout never comes up because you keep that cup full.
And see, you said something, because I think one of the things that happens is that, one, I think women, and specifically Black and Brown women, are genuinely socialized to sacrifice and take care of other people. And, from young, we're taught to, nurture, and we're taught, and that's the view of us, I would say, especially in America. And so it's like, that's our roles, if we, just think about, mammies and, nannies and, all like, just think about like those roles are usually assigned to, Black and Brown women, or at least when people think of them, there's a stereotypical association that goes with it. And so, and there's so much more that I could say about that. But you said something. What I find now is that a lot of times when women, especially Black and Brown women, come of age and they're at a place where they're like, okay, I do want to be in a relationship, they have difficulty, or rather we have difficulty, drawing a line and being very clear about, this is my role as a wife versus me coming in and trying to do everything. And I had lunch last week with one of my friends and her partner, and he said that, coming in when they met, and they've been together now for about 5 years, coming into the situation of them dating, pretty much she was in the household trying to, let's say, take the trash out and fix bulbs and get stuff from behind the refrigerator and, just do all this stuff. And he was like, I am here. Like, I could totally do that stuff. But you know what? It made me think about when I met my now husband, whom I love so much. It was an adjustment for me. It was also a, take a step back. And he was very, you don't put gas in the car. I put gas. You don't open doors. You don't, and he was very like clear with me, like, you don't do this and you don't do that. And, I do this stuff. And it was an adjustment. And so, there, like we would be out in public and I would naturally go to just open the door and he'd be like,
Yep.
And I'd be like, okay, So now I'm very spoiled and extremely spoiled now. So I don't know who could ever deal with me if for whatever reason we're not together. I don't know. I'm extremely spoiled now. He'll tell you very, very much so. And so I'll like leave something there until like he comes home, and I'm like, no, he'll just get it when he comes home. No worries. So, but it's an adjustment for us. And I think we develop this ideal sometimes of, honestly, we go into autopilot where it's like, I'm just used to having to do all of the things. I'm so used to being that person. And so then when we get into a relationship, it's hard for us to be in a relationship. And then you get and we hear the stories, Black women are so difficult, and, Black women are so argumentative, and Black women, and it's like, because there's a part of us, one, that's always in defense mode, but also two, it's like, if I now adjust to letting you do all of these things, and then you decide to leave, or this relationship doesn't work, right? What am I going to do then? Because then I have to go back to doing all of the things that you've already told me that I no longer need to do. So, there's a whole, piece to that. And, that's what, when you were speaking about the resentment, that's what it made me think about. It triggered that, just remembering that whole topic and what that looks like in a relationship for us.
Yeah. Like you said, like if a woman's worth has been attached to her usefulness or her ability to create and make other people happy, or at least die trying to fix other people and have other people be happy because she's doing what they want, it can be hard to even settle into peace, because you can't ever make people 100% happy. Mm-hmm. So you're constantly going to be in that striving mode, constantly striving, constantly falling short of the ideal. If the ideal is for the woman to have everything around her fixed, organized, working perfectly, and everyone happy, mm-hmm. then no wonder there's a whole bunch of shame. Yep. Because you never hit it. It's basically a treadmill, mm-hmm. over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. I did want to ask about, when you took responsibility for creating the relationship that you were in, when you talk about how you didn't need to heal so much, mm-hmm. because you took responsibility for, this is why I got into where I was. This mm-hmm. is how I created this relationship. This is what got me in there. Do you think that responsibility, just being able to say, hey, I see what happened here, mm-hmm. right? I'm not making it mean anything about me, or that I'm a terrible person, or I'm completely useless. Do you think that helped you heal faster?
Definitely. So there was a whole thing that happened, after my first divorce. I broke out in hives. Mm-hmm. and the hives were really because of the stress. And it was the stress of, oh my gosh, now I have to tell everyone, because I, in my mind, had created, I have to be perfect. And everything, I'm the one that, I went to college, and I have my doctorate, and I have a business, and I have a home, and, I travel, and, I do all of the things. I'm the child that, I'm the successful child that has done everything, quote unquote, perfectly. And that divorce, it woke me up like, okay, listen, this concept of trying to be perfect is like going to drive you insane, and it's going to stress you out, and so I broke out in hives and kind of went through all of that. But what I decided was, and it was a little bit after we had actually separated, I went to China to do a training for these doctors and nurses and healthcare staff at a hospital. And I was there for about 3 weeks, I think. And I came back home and drove home from the airport. And when I got home, no one was there. And it made me so sad that no one was there that missed me or was waiting for me when I got back. And I definitely didn't want it to be, my now ex-husband, but I wanted it to be someone. And so that was, I think, another moment of awakening for me that, girl, you got to get your stuff together. Because a lot of, the not having boundaries, the even attracting my first relationship and deciding to settle was rooted in a lot of my trauma, the things that had happened to me, the perspective of, well, you've done all this stuff. So now the only thing left is for you to, attract some type of love or to get married and, build a family. And so I had kind of like set this expectation, but a lot of it was rooted in my trauma, my childhood. There was domestic violence. My dad died when I was young. There was a lot of, just upset in my household. I grew up in a household with a single mother. And I was determined that I didn't want to be that. I was like, when I do have children, I don't want to be, a mother that's not in a relationship. And it's more so about my own healing, which really has nothing to do with, the child that I would have, but it was really more so about my own healing. And so I, again, I just decided that I needed to get my stuff. I had to fix some stuff inside of me. And that relationship, my first marriage, it really drew a lot of attention to, hey, you have these broken pieces inside of you, for you to even think that it was okay for you to then settle into a relationship that you knew was not good for you, right? That's huge within itself. And you have to get to the root of why. Like, why did you feel the need to do that? What's the deficit inside of me, really, what it came down to. And so that it triggered, a whole path of healing for me that I stayed on for about a year, probably a little bit over. And during that time, a part of it was, I changed my eating. I started boxing. I did yoga. I was going to an acupuncturist. I started doing therapy. I had a life coach. I started working on my business. I really putting the energy in. And I started to really look at myself and really design a life that I wanted to live. And that life, I wanted it to be about me taking care of myself. I hired a chef, and my chef would he would prep my meals, and and so I was losing weight. I mean, I felt phenomenal during that year. But guess what else I decided? I also decided that I didn't want to be in a relationship with anyone. And so I didn't, I dated, but it wasn't like a relationship. Like, I was very intentional. And I remember one of the guys saying to me, "Oh, well, you don't want to fall in love with me." And I was thinking to myself, don't worry,
there's not danger here.
There's no danger there. Like, you're good, and so I remember having that conversation with myself in my head. And so, but I was in that place. And I also learned about twin flames. And I learned about, that there's a match, and there's this other person in the world that's designed and made just for you. And so that started to be my prayer. And so I wrote out this list of, because again, I was clear on what I didn't want and what I didn't need. And that is what helped me to become clear on what it is that I wanted and needed. So I like to tell people that, because people are like, well, I don't know what I want. Great. Let's start with what you don't want. And then we can kind of work our way through, right? Because we have way more experience with understanding what we don't want and need than what it is that we want and need. And so I had written out this list, and I used to read the list, and I would read the list every day. And it was very specific, very, very specific. He's from New York. He's from, he dresses a certain way. He doesn't have, this amount of kids. I mean, it was extremely, he eats like this. He will drink a green smoothie. He likes to run. He likes to walk. He likes nature. He likes music. He likes art. Like, all of those. He's not religious. He's very spiritual. I was very specific, and I said it every day. And and then with me also doing the work on myself, I remember doing a huge cleanse in my house, and I purged. It was nobody's business. I mean, I threw out half of my closet. And when I say throw, I donated it, but got rid of half of the clothes in my closet, got rid of shoes. I got rid of just clothes in my drawers. I got rid of appliances. I got rid of furniture. I got rid of all types of stuff. Anything I was no longer using, things that were just taking up space and then creating clutter. I'm big on feng shui. And so when things are around you and you don't use them, what they do is they create a stagnant energy. And so I was cleansing and getting rid of it. 3 days later, I met my husband, my now husband.
Wow. So what was what did that do for you? Like, all of that decluttering and cleaning out, what do you, how do you interpret that as, shifting your energy to attract your husband?
So the thing is that you have to, and I work with my clients on this all the time, for you to attract new things into your life, right? New things, new people, new business, new whatever. you have to remove the stuff in your life that's just taking up space, right? The stuff in your energetic field that's just taking up space. Now, this also includes, right? Let's be clear. This also includes negative thinking. This also includes these negative agreements that you've made with yourself that are no longer serving you, right? It also includes beliefs. It also includes systems that we're a part of. It also includes people that are around us that are no longer serving our higher selves. You have to make room for new to come in. And so for you to make room for new to come in, you have to get rid of some stuff. So in my house now, what we do on a monthly basis is we purge. We go through, I have everyone go through the kids, go through your drawers, clean out stuff that you can't no longer fit, go through your closet, what stuff that you're not wearing, because it's a lot of stuff that they don't wear. You know, I live in Georgia. The seasons change like, you know, it's hot. That's that's the season. It's cold for like 2 months and then it's hot.
It's hot.
So get rid of stuff, you know, stuff that you don't need, get rid of it. You know, why is it just there taking up space? So I'm constantly like encouraging my household to purge, you know. And so to me, that's what it does. It opens you up to receive because you are making space for it. And I have stuck to that. And it really, you know, since then, I've really stuck to that principle. And on like I said, monthly basis, I'm cleaning, I'm clearing. And yeah.
I 100% agree with you. I phrase it differently. It's a philosophy in my coaching practice where I tell my clients, like, listen, those guys in your DMs, they're holding up the space. They're taking up the space that your guy needs to take up. So when you're tolerating a low quality man or a man who's not putting forth the effort, sometimes they do it out of boredom, restlessness, loneliness. They're like, well, I'll just keep this guy around until I meet my guy. And then I work with them to show them that, hey, you think you're holding on to this guy until the other one comes. But what's happening is that this guy is taking up space. He's taking up the ability for your brain to actually see your real guy. He's imprinting your brain and reinforcing that you are open to a low quality man by keeping a low quality man around. And so your brain is like, oh, this is what we're doing. We're hanging with low quality men. And he just finds you more of the same out there. And I walk them through a process of being able to tolerate having that space empty, walking through the discomfort of clearing out the DMs, clearing out all those matches that they know aren't good for them, sitting and processing what comes up, because stuff always comes up. It's not necessarily fun. And then healing whatever comes up, because there's always something underneath that to heal. So I guess it sounds like the same principle of decluttering, but like more declutter your romantic life so that there's room for a really good guy.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I totally agree.
So how did you meet your husband? Let's get to the good stuff.
So like I said, I did the whole purge, right? And so 3 days later, I'm invited to I had 2 events on my calendar. First event was a bachelorette party, and second event was a house party. So I go to the bachelorette party, all good. I'm, you know, dancing. There's strippers, there's the whole thing. It's great. So then I go to the party, which I'm like, I do not feel like going to this party because now I'm tired because I've been, you know, cutting up at the bachelorette party. So I get to the party. And mind you, I had changed my shoes. I'm like, I'm not wearing heels. I'm putting on because I was done. I was like, I'm putting on flats. I'm just gonna come in here, see everybody, hang out, and relax. So I walk in, and there's a lot of people that know me, and I'm hugging, and I'm kind of working the room, saying hi to everyone. And then I find the stairs, and I'm like, I'm gonna go sit on the stairs, right? Because I'm tired. So I go sit on these stairs, and one of the hosts, who's one of my friends, she brings over some Jello shots, and she's like, hey, we made Jello shots. I'm like, okay, great. So she gives me 2 of them. Well, you know, Jello shots, they get stuck, right? they get stuck in the little cup. And so I'm trying to, like, you know, take the Jello shot, and it's stuck. And so I take my finger and I like dig in there to get it out. And I'm like trying to like spoon it in my mouth with my finger. And I feel someone looking at me. And so I like kind of like, and I have it like in midair by my mouth, I'm spooning it. And so I kind of turn to the left to see, you know, where the eyes coming from. And it's a man, and he is dying laughing, right? And I'm like, don't judge me. You know, that's all I can say. Don't judge me. Start laughing. And from there, we just kind of like, talking. No, actually before that, one of my other friends comes up and she sees him and she's like, "Oh, I like your hat." And he has on a hat and the hat says Brooklyn on it, right? And that's where I'm from. And so she's like, "Oh, I like your hat. Can I have it?" And he says, "Sure." Right. And he like takes off his hat and he gives it to her. And I was like, "What?" Right. Because I don't know anyone that would have given like a hat. No. And so from there, right, then the whole, we're kind of talking. And then he says to me, "Well, what do you do?" And I start telling him, I'm like, "Oh, so usually, okay, this is the thing. Usually I don't, like, back then when guys would say, "What do you do?" I would not say I'm a therapist, right? Because as soon as I say I'm a therapist, it's like, "Oh, no, I'm not saying anything. You're going to start analyzing people get weird." And so I would not say I was a therapist. So he's like, "Well, what do you do?" And I'm like, "I'm a Reiki master and a holistic practitioner." And he says, "Oh, you're a Reiki master?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he says, "Well, I think my heart chakra is broken." And I was like, "What? Your heart chakra is broken? Your heart chakra is not broken." So I'm like, "No, your heart chakra is not broken. You just haven't met the right person yet." And so from there, like we start talking and we're talking about juicing and we're talking about cleansing and we're talking about astrology. We start talking about, spirituality. We start talking about traveling. We're just talking about like everything. And I may have gotten to that party, let's say around, I'm going to say about 9, maybe 9:30ish, 10 o'clock, somewhere in there. And he starts off sitting on the left of me. And before I know it, people are walking up and down the stairs. So he moves and he sits down below me, like on another step. And then like he turns around and we're still talking. A couple hours later, somehow now he's sitting on the step right below me. He's sitting in between my legs. And looking at me and we're like talking. And and it's not, like the people have cleared out of the party.
Yeah.
Like, the party is now done, right? They've put on the slow music, it's time to leave music. And we're just talking. And I'm like, I need to, I think I go to the bathroom or something and I come back and he's like, "Hey, are you ready?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we say bye to everyone. He walks me to my car. He holds my hand to walk me to my car. And he gets me to my car, make sure I get in it. He says, "Hey, I'm going to follow you to the highway to make sure you get on safely." So I'm like, "Okay, all right, let's do it." Right. So he follows me to the highway. And he's like, "Call me when you get home." I'm like, "Okay." So he gives me his number. We do all that. When I get home, I call him. It's like now, I think 2 in the morning, maybe 2:30, somewhere in there. And so I call him and we stay on the phone till like 6 a.m. Right. The sun is coming up. It's like ridiculous. Right. And then we're like, "Okay, I got some sleep. You get some sleep. I get some sleep." Like, so we go to sleep and then we wake up. Like I have a message from him. Oh my gosh, I can't stop thinking about, and then from there, it's like, I'm like, "Okay, this cannot be real." It's like, this cannot be real.
It's like yesterday I was,
yeah.
And then today I'm in this magical fairyland. I know that feeling. I know that.
I'm like, this can't be real, And of course, as I mentioned, my trauma, kind of starts kicking in like, this is something's wrong, like something gotta be wrong with him. This cannot be, for real. So that same day he calls me, he's like, "Hey, I'm at Publix. They have alkaline water on sale. You said that you like alkaline water. I'm going to buy you a couple cases." I'm like, "Okay." Like, and so he's like, "Well, where are you going to be?" Now this is Sunday. He's like, "Monday. Well, where are you going to be tomorrow so I can, bring it?" And I said, "Well, I have to go to the gym in the morning. And then, from there we can probably, meet up." And so we decide to meet at this park. I'm like, "Hey, do you want to go to this park?" And they have like a stream and all, and he's like, "Sure." So we get to the park, we walk around and we wind up sitting and talking. And after, a couple hours, we go and we're leaving and I'm about to get in my car. And he says, "Hold on, I need to read something to you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he pulls out this notebook. It's a yellow notebook. He still has it. And in that notebook, there's a list.
Oh, wow.
And he starts to read his list. And he's like, I know you're my wife. He says, I know you're going to be my wife because, and he reads this list. And I start crying so much because everything in the list is me, like everything. And he's like, he said, I used to read this list before I met you. He's like, every day. And he said, and then I met you, and, down to I had locks at the time when he met me. And in his book, it says she will have locks. And I mean, it was very specific, just like mine. And that night, like we're sitting there and I'm crying, he's emotional, it's a thing. And then the cops come because we're in a park after dark and we're not supposed to be in a park.
Right.
So,
that made it memorable.
So outside of almost about to get arrested, it was a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
And from there we were like stuck. Like we were stuck. And I knew I loved him because he just felt like love. Like us sitting on those stairs at this party, he just felt so good. Like he made me feel good and happy and at peace. And I don't know, it was love. And that's the only way I can describe it. And I had never felt anything like that ever before around someone. And, from there, the rest is history.
The rest is history. How long have you been married now?
So we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary. And so we met 5 years ago. That was June. And then we officially got engaged in October. And then we got married that February.
Wow.
And then I got pregnant 3 months later. And my son just
First comes love, then comes marriage,
then comes baby. That's right.
So good. What a beautiful, beautiful story. And I love that, you were experiencing something with him throughout that period. And I know you used a lot of terminology that women who are not experiencing the same thing will often use at the beginning of a relationship. I'd never felt, like that before. It was love. He felt good. What made him different from, other people? And I know you've heard the stories. Every woman knows, has either experienced that or has friends who's experienced the guy who shows up with all of that goodness in the beginning and then changes. How did you know he wasn't going to change? Like, what were your additional signs? It's not like any of the romantic stuff is bad. Like he had the list, I want you to be my wife, all of that. But what else was there that made him safe and trustworthy that you were willing to move forward with him?
So my husband, and he still is like this. He was very, and still is very gentle and caring. And I remember when we first met, I went to go meet with one of my friends, and I remember him calling me. And this is how she got introduced. And he called me. He's like, hey, on your way back home, get off at such and such exit and call me because there's horrible traffic. There was an accident and I'll guide you, to the house. He was at the house. He was at my house waiting for me to get home. And so for me, I think the thing that I would say is that I have always trusted myself. And I've also never been in denial about the fact that I know, like I know. And even when I've met people, and like I said, my first husband, even when I met him, I knew I shouldn't have married him. And I think sometimes as women, we don't trust ourselves, or we choose to not trust ourselves. And so then we still, make the decision anyway. Because another thing that you'll hear from a lot of women is after, things don't go the way that, they may want them to, is I knew. And they'll say that I knew I shouldn't have stayed. I knew I should. And so there again is that deficit, like what is it inside of you that makes you sacrifice yourself to be in that relationship, because that's in essence what it is. And so I think that's the biggest piece that was different. And I remember doing a Reiki session on him. And in that Reiki session, during that Reiki session, he cried, I cried.
Mm.
And I just remember how powerful that was, because that was something else I had never experienced. But I could feel him. And he had a lot of, just sincerity, and he was just a good person, a really, really good person. And I always say, like, he has a purity to him that I don't find in others. And he doesn't have a lot of the traumas and experiences that I have. And so he has always been one to cradle me. It's like a safe space and a safe place for me. But I would say that was the biggest difference, was that he never changed. He never, he was always honest with me. He was always, straightforward with me. And he never, presented as someone that, I don't not, I definitely have stuff, but if you, give me the chance, I will make sure I love you and take care of you. And that was the biggest piece for me. I wasn't looking for someone to take care of me financially. I wasn't looking for someone to take me around the world. I wasn't looking for someone, to help me buy a house. I had all that. Those were things that I had accomplished on my own. But the piece of my life that I was missing was having that pure love and having someone that could care for me and take care of me. And he did that, and continues to do that now. He's that person that keeps me balanced, because I can go into, I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm writing a book, I have a group going on, I have clients, I have, boom, boom, boom. And he's like, okay, just come here, give me some hugs. Give me some love. Let's hang out tonight. Let's just watch TV. Do you have to work tonight? And not just that, but, oh, you're writing books. Okay. Do you need me to ship the books out to the people? Do you need, so he's also that person for me as well. And I've never had anyone that is in my corner like that. And again, is so sincere with it, and so genuine.
Wow. That's so good. I love that you laid out his qualities, because the qualities that you just mentioned, all of them, those are things that can't be faked. You can't fake gentleness and caring and purity and, a heart of service. You just can't. You can't pretend to have those if you don't have it. Dr. Fanike, thank you so much for telling your story today, for being here, and just giving all of those gems that you did. Please tell the listeners again what you do, a little bit about your book, and where they can find you on the internet.
So I help others to, shift energy blocks and to move those pieces in our lives that are kind of holding us up. And oftentimes they are, rooted in those traumas and rooted in those disappointments and just life events and life experiences that are impacting us and stopping us from being high achieving and, accomplishing the goals that we've set, and, starting that business or getting into that relationship or attracting that relationship, that we have been wanting. My book is What the F is Your Problem? Becoming an Active Worker in Healing Your Trauma. It comes out on tomorrow. Well, yeah, March. It's out, but the book launches tomorrow. For anyone that is interested, you can go to drfanike.com and get a signed copy. You can also get the workbook there, or you can buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or any of the other major retail sites. And again, it's What the F is Your Problem? And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook, Clubhouse, at Dr. Fanike, DrFanike, same handle across the board, including LinkedIn. And yeah, looking forward to connecting with some new people. So, definitely feel free to reach out if you feel like anything that I offered was of value and you think that I can help.
Absolutely. Thank you again for being here. And for all the listeners, please follow Dr. Fanike on the internet. If you are dating after divorce, in the show notes, there is a link to my free dating course. You can grab that from the show notes, and all of Dr. Fanike's links will be in the show notes as well. So make sure you check those out. Thank you everyone for your time and attention, and I will see you next time.